Welcome back, Mighty Vandals, to Tubbs at the Club, your University of Idaho affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brian Marceau, joined by finally back, Dallas. How's it going?
Well, I took a quick sabbatical because I'm sick of watching my beloved West Ham just struggle to stay in the Premier League. The Anaheim Ducks are blowing the Bedard sweepstakes. Brian, I'm not doing well, but I'm glad to be back here. And nobody cares that I'm here. Anybody watching, nobody gives a shit that I'm here today.
Well, and you're
blowing bubbles in the air, West Ham.
There we go.
I love it. I'm a fan too. Hell yeah,
well, see, now I'm confused because look, whenever we talk soccer, I just put my phone up. Because back in the day, I used to have to pretend to care. Now I don't. I'm a co-host. I don't have to give a shit. But anyway, so I guess we got a Ballgame already broke the news. We're joined by Johnny Ballgame, a.k.a. Johnny Mallory. Johnny, how's it going, dude?
I'm doing well, guys. Thanks again for having me on. I love what you guys do. I don't always agree with you guys, but I love what you guys do. Idaho Vandal Nation needs this, and it's an honor to be a part of the show tonight because there's a lot to talk about. So again, hey, guys, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining us. And we'll jump right into that, but we always have to bring this up. He's always producing, always seducing in the background. Marten Heemstra, glad to have you here.
Oh, yeah. Good to be here even after you're on such a sad show.
Yes. And of course, Ballgame, because you're here, Racketit69 immediately assaulting the comment thread, calling you the GOAT. We'll take it. Okay. Look, dude, we're going to jump into Around the Bar brought to us by Hughes River Expedition. Ballgame's not going to be on the show the whole time. So the start of the show, we're going to lean heavy into Johnny Ballgame. Interpret that as you will. So the biggest news, of course, that we're going to talk about is, look, last week, Jon Newlee was fired. The announcement came essentially what felt like out of nowhere. Idaho described in the press release that the parting being mutual. We'll get to more of that later. But anyway, that's what the press release said. They're calling it mutual. I can confirm this is not firing for cause. Newlee's contract will be paid out until he signs somewhere else, which because of who he is, he'll be able to do that. But look, Johnny, part of why we want you on is because Johnny Ballgame. But the other reason why here is, look, you've been pretty involved through. You got your announcing start with women's basketball, correct? University of Idaho. You're pretty tight. That program is something that you care about as a Vandal, but also just as, it's been tight with your career as well. So, I guess to start it off, man, take it away. You hear the news last week that Newlee's out. Tell us where that took you.
It was sad, man. I mean, it was a gut wrench. It was a slap to the face. It was a punch to the gut. It was a kick to the groin, all at the same time, learning that Jon Newlee was no longer going to be the head women's basketball coach at the University of Idaho. And I always thought that this day was coming, but I thought it was because Newlee would get like a Power 5 gig or something. I never figured that it would be this mutual parting of ways, especially, guys, the timing didn't seem to compute well with me on that. And you're right, Marceau. Like, the very first job that I ever got a paycheck in broadcasting was from the University of Idaho. Like, they gave me a chance when I didn't know what a chance was, right? I was the play-by-play broadcaster for the Idaho Vandal women's basketball team for 3 years. The first year, I think we went 4 in like 27 or something. And then Jon Newlee showed up from Idaho State. And I saw Jon Newlee come in firsthand and build this culture that 15 years later was still flourishing, in my opinion. And I got to know Coach Newlee initially just as his radio guy, but we got to be, really, really good friends over the last 15 years. I've still kept in touch. I follow Vandal women's basketball every single night with Coach Newlee for the last 13 plus whatever years it was. I've lost track. He's been here so long. And I'll say this, I learned more about basketball from Jon Newlee than anybody else in my life. So it was a real sad day for me last week when I heard of this mutual departure. And I'm with you guys. I mean, when is any breakup mutual? It really never is, guys. Whether it's a husband or wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, professional relationship, they're really never mutual. So take that for what you want. And I know nobody is taking this in the Vandal women's basketball community, which I am a member of. No one's thinking this was a mutual thing, but we're not all Terry Golick. We don't get to make that decision. She made it. Jon Newlee obviously was a part of it, and they're going to go in separate directions right now, but a really big blow for me personally, guys, because I love Jon Newlee. I love that man. But here's a quick thing about basketball, and you guys all know this because you watch basketball and you've seen it for the last, say, 15 to 20 years. The sport of basketball has shifted into this kind of three-point line culture, right? And before the Splash Brothers at Golden State, Jon Newlee was doing this at Idaho State. And then he brought that culture to Idaho. And I was at the forefront. I was a fly on the wall, man. I was just this radio guy. But Jon Newlee always invited me to every shoot around. He encouraged me to come to every practice. Jon said, hey, I want you to know exactly what we're doing so it will help your broadcast. And he was obviously 100% correct. I was able to become a broadcaster at the University of Idaho because of Jon Newlee teaching me the nuances of the game and philosophically what he was trying to do. Idaho at the time, we were in the WAC, and this was the good WAC. It's basically what the Mountain West looks like right now, right? This is when even like Boise State and Nevada and some of those Mountain West teams right now, guys, were in the WAC. It was a tough league. And what did Jon Newlee do? Year one, he comes in there with this three-point arsenal. We led the league in three-point attempts. We led the league in three-pointers made, and we finished third in the league. We were last in the conference my first year there. Newlee shows up, we're third in the league, and we're going to the Mountain West, the WAC tournament at the time with hope. And Newlee was at the forefront of this. Hey, we're not going to get the most talent here at Idaho, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to get shooters. We want all 5 players on the floor to be able to take and make threes, and we're going to do it. And we led the conference, like I said, in those categories, and that equated into success and into winning. This is before Steph Curry and Klay Thompson were setting all these records shooting threes. Jon Newlee was doing that at the women's game before anybody was doing it. So I always look at Newlee as a basketball innovator in that sense, a scientist in that sense. And Idaho Vandal women's basketball over the last decade plus has had a lot of success in that regard for Newlee philosophies. So, yeah, I was mega bummed out when I heard they parted ways. And I don't know where Vandal basketball, women's basketball is going to go from here, but I will always miss the Jon Newlee era. And I think a lot of you guys know Vandal women's basketball. I mean, Newlee he was hard. He was tough. You respected him. He grew up with Ronnie Lott, the Hall of Fame safety for the San Francisco 49ers on the streets of San Diego. He was tough. He was hard, and he instilled that in his team, and they played well in the clutch. And, man, he's a beautiful man. I love Jon Newlee. I'm probably biased on this stuff, but fuck, this is Tubbs in the club. We're all biased towards the Vandals. The bottom line is we all want the Vandals to succeed. And if they can hire someone who's going to be better than Jon Newlee, I will support it 1,000%, Terry Golick. I question it a little bit. I was bummed out. I love Jon Newlee. And guys, this is sad, man. Newlee's no longer the women's coach. What the fuck, man? Right? Come on, guys.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah, dude, I mean, look, just to buttress your initial point, man. The year prior to Newlee taking over under DeVivelis, Idaho is 3-13 in conference. Newlee's first year. So, hey, this did not take 7 years to turn around like another program we shall not mention. 10-6. Yep, 10-6 right away.
Third in the league, in the WAC, which was a good league, Marceau. The WAC was a really legitimate league then. And Newlee, year one, with no players he recruited. Yeah, I mean, I can go on, but yeah, this is your show, not Idaho Sports Talk, but you're firing me up, you guys. I love it, and I'm going to miss Jon Newlee tremendously. I love him. Coach, if you're watching, you know this. I love you. I have your back, and I'm sorry you're not the coach of the University of Idaho anymore.
Yeah, Dallas and I are going to get to more of our reactions of like piece by piece of this, which, hey, spoiler alert, again, we're not stoked. But like my initial reaction, like just at an emotional level last week, Ballgame, was similar to yours. I mean, I immediately thought, look, we on the show had spent a lot of time talking about Marten recorded the women's episodes. I focused on the men's. That's just how we split. We only have a few people. We all work. We fit what we can. But I immediately thought, God damn it. I pissed away 4 years of Zach Kloss to miss out on Newlee, and now Newlee's gone. What kind of dumbass shit was that, Brian? So that immediately, that's where I was. Because look, even in Newlee, look, his last 2 years were essentially two of his worst at Idaho. They weren't catastrophically terrible or anything. Like,
No.
Honestly, if Zach Kloss had Jon Newlee's worst years, he'd probably still be here. But Newlee's gone.
Look at Newlee's non-con. And I love what Newlee did. He told me this. I remember when he first got the gig. His whole vision for this program was, we are going to play the best possible opponents in the non-con, period. And yeah, we might get our ass kicked. Yeah, we might be 2-7 at one point. But we're playing teams that are aspiring to go to the Final Four. That is going to help us in league. That is going to help us in the conference tournament because Jon Newlee knows this. He was in the Big Sky with Idaho State. He knew he had to win that conference tournament. It's a one-bid league. He knew he had to beat Montana. He did. He took the Idaho State Bengals to the NCAA tournament. Talk about tracking down a cephalopoid on foot. Men in Black reference, guys. Nobody takes Idaho State to the NCAA tournament. Newlee did. And he comes to Idaho with that same philosophy. And when I was there, the schedule might have been predetermined. But over time, yeah, he played everybody because he knew it came down to 3 days in March. In the conference tournament, that's the only team that gets the bid. Newlee in the WAC, Newlee in the Big Sky twice. He knew I'm in a one-bid league. I have to prepare my team as much as I can for that conference tournament. Those 3 days, I got to win games. And he did that. And he took the Idaho Vandals to the NCAA tournament 3 times in, I think, 5 or 6 years. Like, they were going to the tournament so much, Newlee, it's like it was going out of style. I was like, oh, yeah, Newlee got the team to the tournament again. I knew they were a 15 or 16 seed. But, yeah, welcome to Big Sky basketball. If you're going to go to the tournament as a Big Sky team, you're not going to be a 12 seed. So for all those people that are like, oh, hey, yeah, he went to the tournament, but they were a 16 seed. Well, that's all you can get in this league. And Newlee had them there all the time. He lost the conference championship a couple of times. He had Marceau, Dallas, my man Marten. He had those guys in that position multiple years. I didn't care what Newlee's record was, and I followed him every game. I knew what his philosophy was. We're going to get to the tournament, the conference tournament, and we played all these tough teams, the toughest non-con schedule every year in the Big Sky was Idaho, Jon Newlee. Always the toughest non-con schedule in the conference. And I love that philosophy. And I didn't care that his record didn't look all this sexy playing Lollygag Tech or Cupcake State or Cream Puff U. Jon Newlee wasn't about that. He wanted his players to play the best players in the country, so we'll be ready for March to get to the dance. And a lot of times he did. And I'm not here to fucking bash Terry Golick or anything, but whoever they do hire, there's a standard that Jon Newlee set here of getting to the tournament and winning that tournament. If you're saying, hey, I'd rather have a winning record and play Cream Puff U and Cupcake State or Lollygag Tech in the non-con so your record looks a little better, okay, fine, if that's what you want to do. Jon Newlee didn't want to do that. He knew what he was doing, and he was great at it. And in my opinion, he is going to be sorely missed in the Idaho Vandal community. And yeah, I love the guy, and he's a brilliant basketball mind. I hope he lands on his feet. Jon Newlee, love him, man. Yeah.
Quick check-in from the stats department. The three trips to the tournament in 4 years, Idaho played 6 teams in the top 25 in those 4 years. Absolutely insane when you're talking about some of the worst conferences for women's basketball. Playing 6 schools in the top 25 in 4 years is asinine. I respect the hell out of that.
Newlee knew, Newlee knew that it doesn't matter what our regular season record is. That doesn't mean shit. What matters is we go to the conference tournament and we're prepared to win 3 games in 3 days. And he did it almost more times than he didn't. So he's going to be sorely missed. I like that philosophy. And I get it. It doesn't look great sometimes. Oh, your record's 5-14 or whatever it is. And it wasn't even that bad. But yeah, coming out of the non-con, it was rough. Yeah, he played really good teams. And that was he did that for a reason. Jon Newlee knew that he wasn't going to win all those games, but he wanted his team to experience what it's going to take to play against the top teams in the country. And he did that. And I wish he was still the coach of Idaho Vandal women's basketball. And I'm never going to speak for Jon Newlee. I would never speak for Coach. I love him too much, but I would imagine Coach Newlee, if he had it his way, I think he's still the coach of Idaho Vandal women's basketball. Sadly to say, guys.
Yeah, before you jump off Ballgame, I do want to hit. It's kind of 2 things at once, which is you brought up the idea that hey, if they're going to replace Newlee with someone better, by the way, this timing, no, they're not a fucking chance. But combination of hey, if they can replace with someone better, but also the timing of Newlee of the firing. Like I gotta tell you, the timing does not look like brilliant strategy whatsoever. The signing period has begun. Idaho has no coach. Since Newlee was fired, 2 starters for Idaho have entered the transfer portal. Rosa Smith and the big one, B-tch Bay, who is going to like you can bring this up if you want, Johnny. B-tch Bay is going to get very good offers. So at this, and look, Martin's just brought this up. Drew Muscatel, only coach right now who's left, which means there's essentially no one to do anything right now. And spoiler alert, there's no way Muscatel's coming back unless he's promoted, which doubt that's going to happen. But look, I guess Ballgame, I guess react to that, man. The timing, like this feels like next year already feels thrown away. Where look, this team wasn't great and they just lost a player of the year caliber player. There's no recruiting strategy in place to replace them. So I don't know, man. Take the wheel.
Let me say this. Yeah, B-tch was the best player Idaho's had since I'm thinking Leilani Mitchell, who was a WNBA player who left the program and went to Utah. B-tch was the best player they've had since then. And if Newlee is still the coach at Idaho, B-tch is still the star player at Idaho. And they're going to try to go to the NCAA tournament last year. I'm actually surprised it took a week for B-tch to announce this. But you're right. They don't have a coach, Marceau. I've talked to Jon Newlee tonight, and he's getting lit up. And this is like she announced this 5 hours ago. And Jon Newlee is getting text messages from a ton of coaches across the country saying, do we want this kid? And absolutely, yes, you do. B-tch should have been playing in the Power 5 for the last 2 years. The reason she wasn't was because of Jon Newlee. Jon Newlee is able to take chicken shit and turn it into chicken salad. I've seen him do it, and he did that a long time, and I guess the record wasn't what the program wanted it to be. I get that. Whatever. The last 2 years, they were a little down, but I still think he should have got another year with B-tch. The best player the program's had for 20 years. Give the coach another year with her, in my opinion. But I've heard Oregon is interested. I've heard Utah is interested. I've heard Maryland is interested, which is Maryland basketball. That's like Duke in men's basketball, okay? Maryland women's basketball is mega. I've heard Florida is interested in the SEC. B-tch is going to go mega Power 5 type of situation. She wouldn't have went anywhere if Newlee is still the coach. But again, I'm not here to get into why, again, Newlee isn't the coach. I wasn't privy to that conversation with Terry Golick and Jon Newlee. And Terry Golick, look, I tipped the cap. Thank you. The Jason Eck hire was fabulous. I'm signing off on the Pribble deal. I like him too. So whatever happened with her and Jon Newlee, that's her and Jon Newlee's business until it gets public. I don't necessarily know what it is, but I will say this for B-tch, watch out for Utah, because Gavin Peterson, a good friend of mine, was Jon Newlee's associate head coach at Idaho for a long time. He is now the associate head coach at Utah. I could easily see B-tch going to team up with Gavin Peterson, who runs a similar system to Newlee at Utah. I have no other information. I'm just going to predict it. I think B-tch goes to Utah, but if she wants to go bigger, she can, because she's that good. And I also credit, again, who finds B-tch in a small town in fucking Oregon? Who finds her? Oh, yeah. Jon Newlee finds her, and he developed her into like one of the greatest players in the history of Idaho women's basketball. I know she's left, but I would still hope to see B-tch in the Idaho Vandal Athletic Hall of Fame someday. She deserves it. I need to see Jon Newlee in the Idaho Vandal Athletic Hall of Fame someday. He's earned it as well. So it's just like, it's a sad time that they're moving on with women's basketball. And again, I'm a Vandal. I mean, we're all Vandals. Hope Terry hires a coach that's better than Jon Newlee. I hope she does. I don't buy it yet, but hey, she hired Eck, and she's rolling hot on that. Jason Eck has just been. I honestly think too, guys, she hit it. Terry Golick hit it so far out of the park with Jason Eck. That ball hasn't even landed yet, right, guys? So I think she's hot on that, and she wants to find someone to come in and take Idaho Vandal women's basketball to a level that Jon Newlee wasn't able to take them to. My opinion, for whatever it's worth, I don't think you can do that. I thought you had the best women's coach in the history of this program. I'm sad that he's not there anymore. It's not that I'm not canceling my subscription to the alumni newsletter, guys. I still love the Vandals. I'm all about them, as you know. I personally wish that Jon Newlee was still the women's basketball coach there, guys. Sorry for hijacking your show. This is a big thing for me. I love Jon Newlee. I love the man. We're great friends. And maybe that makes me biased here, but I thought he was a hell of a coach too.
So if you think, Ballgame, that Jon Newlee should be in the Idaho Athletics Hall of Fame, does that mean you think he also deserves a goodbye press conference?
That rarely happens. So that just doesn't happen, Marcel. That's just not how it works, man. Yeah, does he deserve it? Does he deserve it? Sure, great, love it. But that's just not how it goes. They part ways.
We had a press conference for Petrino being fired. We had a press conference for Zach Kloss being fired. This is allegedly mutual. You sure that would be that weird?
So I missed those two pressers. Interesting. So in that regard, yeah, maybe that's a little interesting. If you guys want to do Tubbs at the Club, unsolved mysteries, why did Jon Newlee not get a post presser? I mean, maybe I'll ask Coach that. I'll text and see, were you offered that? Maybe he was. Maybe he was pissed off and he didn't want it. Maybe Terry Golick was pissed off and she didn't want it. There's a lot of variables in that, guys. And like I said earlier, the whole mutually agree to part ways, it's never mutual. We all know this. Like, let's not pretend that this is the only time that's ever happened, right? Where, oh my God, they're mutually agreeing to part ways. Is it really mutual? It never is. I've had so many girlfriends leave my ass, and I said, yeah, no, it was mutual. Mom, no, it was mutual. It was mutual. No, it's because I was smoking weed and playing NCAA football on my PlayStation every night. That's why she left me. It wasn't mutual. I was building an Idaho Vandal dynasty on my PS2. I was having Heisman Trophy winners in Moscow. The Kibby Dome was packed for me. I was scheduling Alabama coming to the Kibby. That's what I was doing. She bailed me. Yeah, but it was mutual. It was mutual. Huh? Nah, it's never mutual, guys. You know that. So, yeah. And again, I'm not going to speak for Coach. I think you guys should try to have Coach on here if you want sometime. Maybe he comes on, maybe he doesn't. But and all that saying, yeah, I don't think it was mutual. Marcel, you're going to talk about this when I leave, but you know that, man. It wasn't mutual. Come on, man. Yeah.
So, I want it on record. I would love to have Jon Newlee on the show. Just putting that out there.
Yeah,
Coach.
Newlee,
Coach, on the host.
Come on, Coach. Come on, man.
Shoot us a DM, please.
You can go through Ballgame. You can also just DM us directly. Jon Newlee, we would love to have you on. I'm sure it would not necessarily. Well, I'm sure you'll wait till you know how to handle yourself, man. But if you want to come on, you will always be welcome on the show.
Always.
So, Ballgame, before you go, any singular kind of memories that you have about Jon Newlee at University of Idaho that, I don't know, maybe color how you understand Jon Newlee in a way that, look, people who don't have the relationship you have, they just wouldn't understand.
Oh man, I mean, I got a million. As the play-by-play guy, I was there at practice, I was there on the bus, I was there on the airplane, I was there at shoot around, I was there in the hotel. Like, when you're the play-by-play broadcaster of a team like that, like, you feel like you're a scholarship athlete. And I remember Jon Newlee made sure that I got issued the same Nike shoes that everybody on the team was issued. I remember Coach Newlee made sure I got the warm-ups, the sweatshirt and the sweats. I still have them in my closet, man. So I felt I'm geared up. I'm walking through these these airports and into these hotels like, I'm a player here, I was just the nerdy radio guy. I will tell you one funny story, though, man. I will tell you one funny story, man. We're at the airport. We just flew into Spokane, okay? Because they'll always tell the recruits this. Hey, yeah, you come to Idaho. It's going to be great. We fly to all these games. This is when we were in the WAC. So we did fly everywhere. But we flew out of Spokane. We never flew out of Moscow Pullman. So typically, if we played a Wednesday game, okay, Wednesday and maybe a Thursday game, we played, I think, Thursday and Saturday on road trips. We would leave on Tuesday night on a big-ass bus, and we would go to the Spokane airport on Tuesday night and stay at a hotel on Tuesday, wake up early in the morning and fly to the destination on Wednesday, have a practice there, settle in, go have team dinners, all this stuff, and then, play the games on Thursday and Saturday. So the best Newlee story I have, man. So we're practicing. We're in San Jose, right? We're getting ready to play the Spartans, and we're in some weird gymnasium. Like it was like almost like an Axiom, okay? Like where they rented the gym at an Axiom so we could practice, okay? And I was there with the whole team and all this, and Coach Newlee brings us all to center court. This son of a bitch, man. And he says, okay, here's what we're doing. We're going to the Cheesecake Factory for dinner tonight. And I'm like, oh, hell yeah. I love the Cheesecake Factory. And I had like a big per diem. I could order whatever I wanted from the Cheesecake Factory, right, guys? I'm like, hell yeah. I'm getting cheesecake. I'm getting the meal. Like, I ate so well as a broadcaster for Newlee. Like, we went to nice restaurants. But Newlee says this. He says, okay, at the end of practice, Johnny Ballgame is going to shoot a free throw. If he makes it, everybody on the team gets cheesecake tonight from the Cheesecake Factory. If he misses it, well, we'll all get our dinner, but we don't get dessert. And I'm looking at Coach like, you fuck, man. Really, dude? You're putting this shit on me? Like, what? Come on, man. And Newlee's like, no. So I'm like, okay. So I grab a women's basketball. Remember, they're different sizes. So I grab a ball, and I'm going to run over to the next court, and I'm going to shoot 503 free throws in the next 90 minutes, right? And Newlee says, nope, you don't get to shoot. He like scolds me. No practice. You sit there, you sit on the sideline, you do what you do. At the end of practice, you're going to shoot this free throw. So that whole practice, man, the girls are looking at me like when they have a second, like, ball game, you better fucking make this, man. I want cheesecake tonight. It's a big deal. And I'm like, hey, Yinka, hey, Rochelle, hey, Charlotte, I'm going to try my best, but don't put this on me. Newlee did this, man. Don't put this on me. And so I'm just nervous the whole practice. I'm scared, guys, because I knew if I missed this shot, they would never let me forget it, guys. Fucking ever. Like, those girls were hard on me. Like, they would have crushed me. So I'm nervous the whole practice. Of course, practice ends. Newlee brings them all to center court, and they're all waiting for it. And Newlee's like, all right, okay, ball game. Johnny Ballgame. He always called me Johnny Ballgame. I don't even know if Newlee knows my last name. It was always Ballgame. So he says, Ballgame. All right, come on. There you go. Here's your ball. Hit this free throw. If you make it, we all get dessert tonight. If we miss it, nobody gets dessert tonight. And this is the Cheesecake Factory. That's good dessert, guys. So I get there, and I played high school ball. I didn't play much at the time. So I go through the free throw, my routine. I sit there. The nerves are coming, and I go through this freaking free throw, guys. And I don't know how it happened, but I let it release, and I sunk it. I hit it. I made the free throw. So I run. After I make the free throw, I run to the opposite end of the court, and I do this like Michael Jordan over Craig Elo. I do this like jump, fist pump, and I'm pumping my fist, and the whole team comes over and mobs me. I have 15 Idaho Vandal women's basketball players on top of me like, ball game. Like I'd never been this popular in my whole life, man. I hit it. And Newlee was just loving it. And him and the staff, Kristen, everybody was, Braz and Gavin and everybody, the assistants at the time. That was one of the great moments of my athletic life, making this free throw, giving everybody dessert that night in. So we go to the Cheesecake Factory a couple hours later, and I was the hero of the show. Ball game. Thank you. High-fiving. Like it was one of the great moments of my life. Newlee, that son of a gun, man, put me on that pressure. I was lucky enough to make the shot, and that's kind of my Jon Newlee story. That's the stuff that we did. Nobody saw that. There's no cameras. But when you're the broadcaster of a team, you're kind of on the team. So I was there at practice on the road and all this stuff. And Newlee did that. He put me under pressure. I was so lucky. I actually hit the stupid free throw. And that's crazy, man. I haven't told that story in years. It was one of the great moments of my athletic life, guy. But, shit, man. I'm going to miss Newlee at Idaho, guys. Going to miss him. Is that good enough? Is that a good enough story? Do you want another one? Are we going to keep this going? I got a million of them, but no. One other quick one. We're in San Jose again. And we get on the bus to go to dinner, and Krista Stanford, his right-hand assistant, brilliant mind. I would have loved Braz to get this gig. But Braz comes on the bus, and she says, hey, ballgame, Coach isn't coming to dinner tonight. I'm like, yeah, okay. She said, he wanted me to tell you that he's going out to dinner with Ronnie. And Krista didn't know who the fuck Ronnie was. Ronnie? She just said he was going out to dinner with Ronnie. And I'm like, Bay Area, Coach Newlee, Ronnie Lott, Pro Football Hall of Famer, San Francisco 49ers. I'm like, is he going out with Ronnie Lott? She's like, I don't know. He just said, tell Ballgame I'm going out to dinner with Ronnie tonight. So, of course, the next day we meet for breakfast, and Coach Newlee has an autographed Ronnie Lott T-shirt for me. And that's the type of guy Jon Newlee was, man. I love him. I'll always love him. Whoever hires him is going to win a lot of games. And, yeah, guys. Wow, man. Yeah, wow. How long have I been on? I told you guys, 10 minutes tonight? What's it been, 50?
39 minutes and 13-ish seconds and counting. But our viewers aren't going down, man. We're glad you can make it.
I'll tell you guys this. Keep me on as long as you want. I can be on the entire episode. I just might not. You guys do whatever you want, Marcel.
So here's the thing. We're at a point where Dallas and I are going to have to do some reaction stuff. If you want to stay on for that, you're more than welcome to. The tone will shift.
Very much shift. Very, very much shift.
You guys got me going. Okay. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to take a bathroom break if that's cool. You can take me off the screen, but I want to come back. I want to hear what you guys are going to say about this if that's okay.
We may be keeping your background up just for fun. It looks good. But yeah, hey, we got 34 viewers. Let's let them know about Hughes River, Dallas. Then we can get to the next point.
If you are looking for a great all-inclusive week-long vacation, don't look past your backyard. Hughes River Expeditions has been vandal-owned and operated since 1976, and they're ready to take you on the vacation of a lifetime. Enjoy a multi-day trip down the Middle Fork of the Salmon, the main salmon river of no return, the Salmon River Canyons, or even the Selway. Check out special trips like one to see the Perseid meteor shower. Camp on pristine beaches, or bitches. Run amazing whitewater, hike scenic trails, spot wildlife, soak in beautiful natural hot springs, and fish some of the most remote stretches of river in the entire country. Just bring your clothes and let HRE handle the rest. Grab a paddle, catch dinner, and ride the bull all throughout the Gem State. Call them now at 800-262-1882. Again, that's 800-262-1882. Or check them out at hughesriver.com.
All right, Dallas, you have been on the shelf a little more than me for this episode. And like I said, hey, listeners, ball game's going to be on a little longer than we thought, but we're going to go to our interpretive part of the firing. Because, look, that's what it was. I don't want to soft pedal the mutual thing. And, look, ball game's correct. Many times splits of any sort are not mutual, but this was purposely portrayed as mutual. It is not. It was not a resignation.
Fuck no.
This is not a firing for cause. If the university has something that was very important that meant Newlee needed to be fired, it is on the university and their multi-million-dollar athletic department with multiple staff members whose entire jobs are at least partially based around communicating with the public. It is on them to let the public know. And right now, there's not even a press conference. There is a press conference for the shittiest coach any of us are ever going to have the misfortune of watching in the history of Idaho sports for Zach Claus. Jon Newlee gets an out-of-nowhere shit canning less than a week before the signing period. Of course, the year has been essentially thrown away. But look, Dallas, I'm going to give it to you. Your reaction to the firing, take it wherever you want, dude.
What a fucking joke, man. An absolute fucking joke. All you have to do is go look at Jon Newlee's Twitter. It's at Coach Newlee on Twitter. The second sentence, or excuse me, the first sentence of the second paragraph, it has always been understood that coaches serve at the pleasure of their administration, and I've known that since the beginning. That right there tells me this was not mutual at all. This was absolutely some sort of personality conflict. And again, Ballgame kind of mentioned it. Like, there was probably something going on there. We don't know what it was. We weren't privy to it. But all I see, Brian, are the numbers here. If Zach Claus got 4 years to run the men's basketball program into the ground, again, the best season the guy had, 10 wins. Jon Newlee has 2 semi-down years where, okay, the program is not in the same place it was 7 years ago when they went to the NCAA tournament 3 years out of 4. Not the same. But the guy who is not only just the best coach in women's basketball history at Idaho, but he might be alongside, if not the best coach in the history of Idaho athletics. The guy is class. 3 NCAA tournaments is just absurd at a school like Idaho. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Idaho, but let's be real here. We're not a blue blood. We're not even a red blood. Basketball is just not a huge thing here. It never has been, never will be. There's been some peaks in both women's and men's basketball, but to move on from Jon Newlee and pay all of this money that's still on his contract, when you look at what Zach Claus had done and you give him 1 more year, you couldn't find $75,000 to move on from that. Now, I think Alex Pribble is going to be a really good coach, really thrilled with that hire. But this just doesn't add up to me, Brian. You see Zach Claus get 4 years of just running the program into the ground. The best coach in women's basketball history here gets 2, again, years that aren't maybe quite up to the standard that he's set. And now he's just gone at the worst possible time. And you absolutely tanked this season of women's basketball. And it's asinine. It's absurd. It's bullshit. And look, 5 years from now, whoever gets hired to this job might end up being one hell of a coach. And I might look really fucking stupid. But right now, I can't defend this. There is no reason that Jon Newlee should have had a shorter leash than Zach Claus. There's no world that makes any sense to me.
And look, additionally, if there is interpersonal shit, it's on the university to say what if a catastrophically terrible event happened, if something that made the relationship unbridgeable, that's the university's job. Until the university says something, I'm not going to assume Newlee's guilty of anything. The only news we have Newlee being guilty of is having an athletic director make what looks like a rash, just transcendently stupid choice right now. And I say rash because the timing, and also if anyone wants to pretend this was some great strategy, Golick has like 2 days to hire the coach. because this was some great strategy, it means there would have been mechanisms already in place to have someone jump in real quick because the signing period's already started. And if she doesn't do that immediately, you guys know this was rash. This was something that came up out of more or less nowhere. And again, if something happened, it's on the university, and there are multiple paid staff members to communicate with the public what the issue was. Until they do that, this is just shit canning. That's it. Second, we've touched on it. Newlee's under contract until June 30th, 2025, guys. So in addition to the point we brought up earlier, the athletic department doesn't get to pretend, they don't get to claim poverty on essentially anything at this point. If they've got the money to shit can a women's coach, they owe him about $300,000 between now and June 30th, 2025, unless Newlee gets hired elsewhere. That's a combination of his $96,000 a year and change contract, $18,000 a year media appearance for 2 years, plus an extra 3 months because this year is not yet up, plus any other benefits associated with that, because there is no buyout. I confirmed that with there's no resignation. I confirmed that with the department. The terms of his contract buyout, which are easily readable, are the university pays up. That's it. That's where we are. So until Newlee gets a job, the university is responsible for that amount of salary. So essentially, they'll be paying for 2 coaches to throw away next year's season. Yeah, man, it would be a pretty tough sell for someone to tell me why this was a good choice. And then again, look, you brought it up. I'm going to touch on this for a little bit. Ballgame, you're back, so you're aware of this from your background. Idaho women's basketball has had a run of coaches dating back to about 1989, where essentially every coach will have an up year or two, and then it craters. That had been the pattern at Idaho for about 3 or 4-ish coaches. And then Newlee was not just 2 good years. And when Newlee had down-ish years, they were still competitive within the conference and a solid team. So this dude is clearly the best women's coach in my mind, at least in the modern era of basketball. This is the best coach the University of Idaho's women's team has ever had. And the dude gets shit canned. No press conference whatsoever, no communication with the public about what happened. The whole point being for this to potentially go away. Well, I got to say, at least on our show, I don't want this to just go. I don't want to just write this off as like, hey, people split up. Newlee meant a lot to a lot of people. Whatever bristly personality conflicts he had within the department, which, by the way, Ballgame, you know this, in athletic administration coaching, there's egos. Everyone has an ego. That's just part of running a program where, look, when you coach sports, you are a person managing egos. That's just a normal thing in department. Egos clash. So unless something that just meant Newlee could no longer be the coach took place, an ego clash isn't just a justifiable reason for firing someone. Look at University of Montana. How well do you think the AD gets along with Bobby Hauck? Somehow they do. They're okay saying, hey, look, Bobby Hauck's winning games, even in down years, whatever. We're fine. We'll ride with this. That's how athletic departments are, especially athletic departments like Idaho, where typically things like poverty are claimed about scheduling until very recently. And we even had people tell us that information that was slipping from the athletic department, scare quotes for listeners, viewers saw that, about Zach Claus last year was poverty. That's bullshit, dude. If you got $300,000 around to fire the best women's coach you've ever had, no one needs to listen to the department saying they don't have money for stuff anymore. The end. Ballgame. You've been in the background for a little bit of this. You want to jump in? You're more than welcome to. Dallas, any or
Yeah. I mean, I'll go first. I'll let Hammer follow this, but he went to the tournament 3 times, and you guys said 4 years. That was I lost track. He went to the tournament so many damn times, right?
It was real quick. It was from 2013 to 2016. Went 3 out of 4 years.
And I was there in Las Vegas when he first went to the tournament and won the WAC championship that year. And I remember seeing him cut down the nets. I was down there covering the Boise State team for ESPN Boise at the time. And I made sure I went over the Orleans Arena to watch my Vandals, then athletic director, who's a good friend of mine, Rob Spear, and I watched the game sitting right next to Rob, and we saw Jon Newlee take the Vandals to the dance, and that was a very fun time. I'll remember that forever for the University of Idaho. You guys, I agree with you, and I'm not here to put Terry Golick on the firing squad like maybe you guys are, and that's fine. She had a decision to make. She feels that Vandal women's basketball is in a better position moving forward with.
Can I pause you real quick?
Jon Newlee. Yeah.
Just got let you jump back in. She did not have to make this decision. She invented this decision unless the university gives us more news.
And here's the thing, Marceau. Terry Golick has nothing more to say on this matter. If she did, in my opinion, if there was, say, abuse or any reason to fire Jon Newlee as opposed to mutually agreeing to part ways, I think we would have heard that information. I don't know why it would come out now. I know Jon Newlee is a. If you ask me what's one word to describe Jon Newlee, tough. He's a tough guy, and he's tough on his assistant coaches. He's tough on his players. Hell, he's tough on his radio guys. He's a hard-nosed, tough, old-school guy. And maybe Terry wants to go in another direction on that. I have not talked to Terry on this. I've talked with Coach. I've talked with Coach Eck. I've talked with a lot of people of the Vandal community about this. And I'm disappointed. I'm not going to speak for them, but I certainly am big-time disappointed with this. And I'm still going to root for Vandal women's basketball. I hope they do good next year, but it's going to be a little bittersweet because I know Jon Newlee would have had B-tch still with this program for another year, and I would have probably picked them to win the Big Sky. It's Jon Newlee. It's B-tch Bay. I'm taking them to win the league. I'm taking them to win every Big Sky matchup. I'm taking them on, they'll have a tough non-con like I've talked about there. So, yeah, man, Vandal women's basketball, whoever takes this gig, guys, has massive shoes to fill. I don't know when it's going to happen, but Jon Newlee needs to be in the Vandal Athletics Hall of Fame at some point. I hope he lands on his feet. I think he will. And I've said this on your show a couple years ago that I even thought that Jon Newlee might be better suited to coach the men's game. I don't think that opportunity is ever going to happen. I said publicly that I thought Jon Newlee should have replaced Zach Claus. And I don't know how many programs have ever done that, but I was hoping Idaho would. Let Newlee coach the men. Maybe he's more suited there. I don't know. He wouldn't have done any worse than Zach Claus did. I can promise you that. So I hope he lands on his feet with that, guys. I really do. Hammer?
I agree with you on pretty much all of that ball game. I mean, Brian and I have even talked about it when Idaho went through the 1-win season with Klaus, and we talked about, is he going to come back? And he came back again, and then he can't come back again, and he came back yet again. We talked about it. Jon Newlee would have been a better coach for the men's team at that point. Obviously, at that point, we're talking Newlee coming off of going 15-5 and 14-3 in conference, so a little bit different discussion 2 years ago, but. Again, I just don't understand it, man. Newlee has one season, he goes 500 in conference. Sure, the overall win-loss isn't great, but again, completely different than Zach Claus scheduling a bunch of Bible schools and NAIA and D7 schools that are putting out a bunch of kids that, like, maybe I would have had a chance to play against in high school. Like, I just don't understand it, guys. We're never going to.
Well, but pause. Yeah, you do. You do understand it.
Bring it, Marceau. Bring it, Marceau. Bring it.
Until something else comes up, we don't have any like, again, no traumatic event, no like traumatic break to know about for us to interpret. So until that happens, I'm not assuming that, which is to say, I'm going to presume Jon Newlee is innocent until proven guilty with evidence, which is to say, with that being absent, look at the shittiest timing that we possibly could have for the upcoming season. Pretty shitty timing in terms of Jon Newlee's contract. This comes across as simply personal shit. There's nothing there. I don't think there's anything else to interpret because, Johnny, this isn't strategy. We don't have another coach named. There isn't a roster right now. Person's going to be starting from scratch recruiting wise.
Think about
what else is there to even interpret?
Yeah, think about this, Marceau. If you're saying, well, we just weren't winning enough, and I hear all this, well, the last 2 years, Newlee slipped a little bit. I say bullshit. You know, Jon Newlee was in the tournament championship game, whatever conference it was, 6 times in 9 years, guys. COVID cost him a title when he had 4 players out that game and he lost the championship in Boise. I was there. I talked to him about it. That was a tough situation. How about this? Every single team that Jon Newlee lost to in the conference tournament for the last 5 years won the conference tournament. Like, these are stats that Terry Golick should know and should consider. And I don't think it was about this mutually agreement of parting ways. I don't think it was about the success that Newlee had. I think it was about the direction she wanted women's basketball to go in at this university. And she felt, and she's got the cards, man. She's the boss. And she felt that Jon Newlee wasn't the right person to send that in that new direction. Does that mean she's going to hire a woman to coach the next program? Does that mean she's going to hire a man to coach this program again? I'm sure people have their issues on that. But that's the bottom line. That's what Newlee had. He had them in the mix to go to the conference, to go to the dance, okay? He had them to go to the dance in 9 years. He was in the championship game 6 times. I mean, shit. Are they gonna offer Gino Ariyama? Are they gonna get Gino to leave UConn to come back? Because I don't know if Gino could take the Idaho Vandals to the conference tournament championship game 6 times in 9 years. We all saw Jon Newlee do it. He did it his way, and it worked. And again, I get it. I'm biased. He's a personal friend of mine. I love the guy. If I get married one day, my girlfriend probably will never do that. Jon Newlee's coming to my wedding. I love the guy. Taught me more about basketball than anybody. And the numbers right there, don't look at his regular record because we all know, I talked about this, what he did in the non-con. He scheduled the toughest opponents he could find to prep him for that conference tournament, and he went to the championship game 6 times in 9 years, guys. Like, I don't know who's going to come in and who's going to duplicate that. Terry, you have your hands full on this. I hope you get it done, Terry. I really do. But, man, Jon Newlee was getting it done, and he had B-tch back for another year, and I would have put money on the fact that they probably would have been in the Big Sky Championship game next year with B-tch and Jon Newlee, guys. Holy shit, right?
In Big Sky Conference play, dude, Newlee, Big Sky Conference play Dallas, Newlee goes 167 and 96. That's 63.5% winning percentage. So, look, the reason why Dallas, I said, and the reason why I think this is worth enunciating, and I don't think people should just simply like brush this off as like, hey, it's Terry's decision to make. Yeah, and it's an incredibly shitty decision. Yes, she has the cards. Yes, she's not going to say anything in public, like Rakitic69 just said a second ago. I don't care. She made a really dumb decision, and she owes an explanation to at least let people know why that was not a dumb decision. Now, she's not going to explain it because she can't explain it well. She absolutely should not have fired him. The timing was as bad as it possibly could have. It was financially an irresponsible decision. Until Newlee's hired elsewhere, we're going to be playing premium women's basketball dollars for a complete thrown away year, Dallas. And I hit that point because you say you're confused, because if you are looking for strategy, you should be confused. The problem is there's no strategy to find at this point unless Terry enunciates it or puts one of her paid employees on a microphone at a press conference to say why. She's not going to, because she doesn't have a good reason, and she is too soft to deal with the criticism of a poor choice.
I guess let me rephrase, Brian. When I say I don't understand, it's because I'm looking for a logical reason here. There is no logical reason, and I think you and I are both very clear about that. There's no logic behind this decision. If there was any sort of logic behind, hey, look, it's time, we've got to cut the cord, we have to move on from the Newlee era and start fresh, fire him right after the Big Sky tournament. Give the new coaching staff a chance to put a recruiting class together. There's all these things that, like, Ballgame's nodding his head here. There's all these things that you're supposed to do if you fire a coach. But we have buried the lead here. None of us are giving the new guy a chance. Terry Golick crushed it with her first contract she handed out for men's basketball. So I have full faith she's going to make the right decision with her first women's hire.
Well, and to by the way, too, we got to bring this up because look, Mallory, Johnny, you're right. Jason Eck, that home run still hasn't landed. 100% correct. Volleyball, that fire has been such a catastrophe. Women's volleyball, they have their own spring practice schedule, just like football does. And it's protocol for schools to scrimmage other schools. So many women bailed on this coach that there are not enough women right now on the women's volleyball team to even do scrimmages. Their spring practices are essentially drills because of how there's some stuff we'll probably talk about eventually, but there's real smoke out of the women's volleyball team. It's not just a new coach getting his own guys. It's not Jason Eck after a good year having some guys leave because very likely they were told, hey, you're just not going to play. This is different. This is people leaving because they don't want to be a part of that. And that's the concern Dallas is talking about is, yes, Jason Eck was a good hire. Yes, there have been good institutional hires by Terry Golick running the athletic department itself. Those have been good hires for sure. But Zach Kloss, catastrophic failure. That was her hiring. No one put a gun to Terry Golick's head when Kloss had a 5-20 record and made her hand that piece of paper to Zach Kloss. The volleyball hire was hers and hers alone. That is a dumpster fire right now. Fingers crossed she's going with Bullsby when she's made the hires with the committee and there's other brains in the room. It's looked a little better. We don't know about Pribble yet, but Pribble on paper looks okay. Looks good at least on paper, but we'll see when the games are played. So fingers crossed that those extra people involved will help a better decision to be made here. But Dallas, you absolutely hit it. There's a reason. Like, there's frustration at the firing, and there's reasonable anxiety of how in God's name are you going to find someone better than Newlee? A, because Newlee's good, but also B, Golick has been hit or miss with her hires, and her misses have been catastrophes.
I don't have any ball game. You take it.
Yeah, I'll take it then. Absolutely. Like, she needs to hit this hire. Like, if Vandal women's basketball looks anything like Vandal men's basketball over the last 4 years, that's going to be unfortunate. And Terry's going to have that egg on her face. And I think she knows that. And I think she's willing to do that. I honestly think that, there was whatever rift between the two of them, Jon Newlee and Terry Golick, that made Terry Golick say, hey, maybe I'd rather lose and do it with someone that I get along with more so than win, and a guy that maybe I don't know. I mean, the numbers, like you guys are saying, don't compute. And they said it was mutual. Nobody here thinks that. And it's a different situation. Obviously, it sucks. And whoever the new women's basketball coach is, for me, in the community that I am a part of Vandal women's basketball, short leash. If Idaho's 5-27 next year in women's basketball and they come down to Boise for the conference tournament and get bounced in the playoff round, there's going to be a lot of people, including me, that say, why the fuck wasn't Newlee coaching this team? Like, what are we doing here? They lost B-tch. Maybe we're burying the lead on that, Hammer. They just lost the best player they've had in 20 years since Lalani Mitchell, who was a WNBA first-round pick. I think B-tch is a WNBA player. I think she plays professionally in the WNBA. Idaho had her. She doesn't want to be a part of it anymore. I mean, did Terry know that? Like, did Terry Golick think, hey, if I lose Newlee, am I going to keep B-tch? Well, you might have had a better part of doing that had you removed Newlee right after the conference tournament. But they waited for whatever the reason was. And yeah, like I said, B-tch is talking to Power 5 teams right now. I think she goes to Utah because Newlee has a connection there and B-tch loves Newlee. So Vandal women's basketball, I mean, hey, we might be wrong. Maybe they hire somebody and they win the Big Sky next year with whatever roster this new coach can put together, and we'll all look like schmucks right now. But until then, we're going to all miss anybody who gives a rip about Vandal women's basketball. We're all going to miss Jon Newlee. Terry, Terry, you made this decision. Newlee, I guess you were a part of it. It was mutual. Terry, you got to get this thing going because Vandal women's basketball, I'll tell you this, guys, and you guys know this, shit. The last 7 years when Vandal men's basketball was a joke, Vandal football with Petrino sucked. The one point of pride we had was Jon Newlee in the women's team going to the conference tournament knowing that they were going to make a run, right? That's what we had. I know you guys bring up volleyball, but no, we're not paying attention to the volleyball tournament. Nobody gives a shit. But a lot of people cared about women's basketball, and Jon Newlee had a very respectable program, more than respectable. And now that's not going to happen. So, okay, we got a good football team. Love ya. Basketball, Pribble, I'm signing off on that. I'm buying in. But where's women's basketball going to be? If you would have had Eck, Pribble, and Newlee, I'm thinking, hey, you got 3 coaches for the 3 most important programs on campus that I'm signing off on. So we'll see who Terry hires. It's going to be a big hire, obviously, but we're all really disappointed that Coach Newlee's done. It sucks, man. It sucks.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to pivot real quick to a new topic and run because I'm running up against the end of my time. But I guess the closing point for me here is completely co-sign on that ball game. I'm going to miss Newlee. He knowing he was coaching the team, I guess it just made me assume there's a stability that would just it just wasn't going to vanish. But I got the reason I'm hitting the Golic end on this is this decision did not have until there's evidence presented. Everyone should understand this as a needless decision. Everyone should understand this as needlessly throwing away next year. And look, I know you were speculating ball games, so I'm not pretending you were saying this as fact. But if it was simply a personal matter of making athletic department shit work better, I cannot imagine a more selfish way to run a public institution than to say, hey, because there's a guy my personality doesn't clash with, I'm going to throw away the next at least year for every fan, every alum, every athlete on the team now, and every athlete who comes in to replace the transfers. There is no other way I can possibly announce that. People who work public jobs are referred to. I work a public job. You're referred to as a quote unquote public servant. Yeah. If petty shit is how you run any public job, get out. So, and again, I'm not saying that actually happened, Ballgame. I'm not saying that's what you believe, but if personality stuff is it, and that's all we have to go off of, guys, that's an embarrassing decision. But I have to run again. We actually do have some news to talk about real quick, guys. Men's basketball. We believe we have reason to believe. Not saying we're breaking news. I wouldn't be writing this on the Tubbs website in print, but good evidence tells us Brandon Laird is going to be the associate head coach for Alex Pribble. Brandon Laird right now is the special assistant / program analyst for UC Davis. Vandals may be familiar with Brandon Laird because 2 seasons ago, he was the interim head coach for Sacramento State. That was the Sacramento State team that beat University of Idaho in the first round of the Big Sky Conference tournament. Idaho men have only lost in the first round of the Big Sky Conference tournament since moving to Boise. I don't need to explain that part, but Laird won 11 games at Sacramento State as an interim. He replaced Brian Katz very late in the summer, so relatively short notice. But Laird has spent most of his time in the California area, also coached NAIA prior to his time at Sacramento State. So I guess, Dallas, throw it to you real quick. If the best information right now is Laird is the associate head coach, what's your reaction?
My reaction is I just spent most of the last hour and 10 minutes shredding Terry Gollick for yet another stupid decision in a very long line of them. Again, home run on Eck, and just about everything else has been just piss down our pants incompetence. But we just fired the men's basketball coach and hired an associate coach that was a better head coach in the Big Sky than our previous head coach. So I am nothing but thrilled with this, Brian. I would have been thrilled for Brandon Laird to take the job from Zach Kloss. That's the bar that we were working with. But again, Laird walked into a tough situation and had a better season than Zach Kloss ever had. If he's going to be the top assistant on the team, fucking thrilled, man.
Yeah. Ballgame. Thoughts on you have short notice on this, dude, but
I like what Pribs is doing. I'm excited for Vandal men's basketball. You got to keep Isaac Jones. And I don't know if keeping Jeremy Harden means keeping Isaac Jones. If I'm Coach Pribble and I can keep Jeremy Harden on this staff, and that's going to keep Isaac Jones, who is the best returning men's basketball player in the Big Sky. I know Pribble's got a lot of decisions to make, but I would retain Jeremy Harden. I thought that was a great hire from Claus last year. And I think Jeremy Harden keeps Isaac Jones, who's the best basketball player in the Big Sky, probably has a chance to get drafted to the NBA next year. And hopefully if Pribble can coach, and I think he can, Isaac Jones is a guy that he wants to coach. So hopefully that all works out. Whether Isaac Jones comes back, I love it. If it means Harden has to come back, I love that too. I love Jeremy Harden. I knew Jeremy Harden back when he was an assistant coach at Eastern Oregon University like 10 years ago. I was working in LeGrand, Oregon, covering EOU, and Jeremy Harden was an assistant. So I've gotten to know him over the years, and I know how great of a recruiter he is. Kids love him. I would like to see Pribble keep Jeremy Harden on staff. I don't know if he will. He probably won't. I don't know. But if Pribble can keep Isaac Jones, however that happens, keep Isaac Jones, man. And I think Vandal Men's Hoops has a chance to win the Big Sky next year, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Real quick on Laird. What I like about the Laird hire is, first, he has some head coaching experience. And look, we know that Pribble has some head coaching experience too, but he's a younger dude. So having someone who has head coaching experience as well, both NAIA and for a year in the Big Sky, that's a plus. Second, while at Sacramento State, and this is just where Sacramento State's identity has been basketball wise for a few years, they're kind of a defense focused team first. So I like that as a complementary piece to Pribs talked about wanting to play fast paced on offense, be disruptive on defensive side. I have no concern whatsoever about Pribs offensively with strategies talked about. And I like that we added defensive mind to the staff. Ballgame, you got to run. I got to run in a second too. Thanks for coming on. And hey, we're at an hour and 15 minutes. That's right in that 20-minute range you said you could be on here, right?
Every time I come on, I tell Marceau, hey, dude, I got 20 minutes. I got to bail. And then 2 hours later, I don't even know where that 20 minutes went. You guys do a good job. I appreciate Tubbs at the club. Idaho needs this, regardless of whether you're talking happy or sad regarding the program, praising coaches, ripping coaches, athletic directors, whatever. Idaho needs this, so I always support it, and I always appreciate you guys having me come on a couple times a year. Thanks, guys.
We love you, Ballgame. The people love you. Thanks for being here.
All right, dudes. Well, I have to run. We had some football updates, but look, they're not going to age terribly. That's Big Sky related. We can talk about that in the future. Dallas, sorry, just to close it out, any last thoughts?
Guys, it's really weird. My opinion of Rob Spear through most of his career was that he did a great job with everything but football, and he did a really good job of running the football program into the ground, wasn't prepared for conference realignment. I know he had his thoughts on it and completely messed all of that up. And now we're here with an athletic director that crushed the football hire, and the jury is out on everything else she has done. It's a weird place to be. I don't think I like it. I'm hoping that, again, Pribble ends up being a great hire. We hope that whoever replaces Newlee is going to be the right person for the job and put that program back to NCAA tournaments. But right now, Brian, I just feel kind of shitty about all this.
Yeah. That we were celebratory about the Petrino firing because we should have been. We were celebratory about the Kloss firing because we should have been. No, this is disappointment. That's it. Obviously, like, you hope whoever comes in does well. So, fingers crossed. But I'd call this is the Newlee firing this is not something people should forget. And with that, I'm just going to say, hey, we still have spring updates coming next week. There's some other stuff coming on. Hey, once we're talking football, man, it's all good news in Vandal world right now. But yeah, we're gonna send you off unless Marten needs a couple seconds with the Newlee Classic. Marten, you need a couple seconds.
Just like I didn't get to say a lot, but it for me it's sad. Still, I'm still very much used to Jon Newlee. I had nothing but great things to say about him. While I'm disappointed with the decision, I don't share the same reactions that both Brian and Dallas do. Not to say that I'm pro the athletic department, but just I don't share that blind rage. To me, it seems like of Terry Golick, of being the hate there. But it's sad. I was shocked. I kind of yes, the past couple years have been down, but I was kind of mentally preparing myself for the day it was him leaving, but I wasn't going to think it was going to be the way it ended. And that's something that you can't really end it with. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got.
Yeah, only thing I'm going to add there, Marten, is especially since the crew running it now is the crew running Tubbs. The commitment has been I don't really care about the idea of covering positive or negative. Don't give a shit. I spend no time thinking about that whatsoever. I cover good news like it's good news and bad news like it's bad news. The end. And I don't know a way to talk about the Newlee firing other than bad news, just like we didn't know a way to talk about football last season other than excitement, because that's what it deserved. But anyway, yeah, I guess if this is a sign off for us talking about Newlee, it's great. This is last thing. I keep saying last thing. This is why with the football season, I tried to bring home enjoy shit while it lasts, guys. Because this is especially the era of college sports we're in with how rosters turn over. We're not likely going to have a gigantic amount, a single team run tables in conferences for, a decade or something like that. So when your team's good, enjoy it. So for the enjoyment Newlee gave to us and to Vandal players, alums, fans, whatever, we thank Jon Newlee for his time, and fingers crossed that Idaho has a prayer of following him up with someone comparable. At this point, I would not gamble on it. With that said, I'm going to say, Marten, you ready to throw the all-time outro? Go Vandals.
Go Vandals and go Jon Newlee.
I got a lot of great friends in Pocatello, but there were just some ignorant people that were sitting behind our bench abusing kids and me. All I did was win there and leave there. And they're still bitter apparently 8 years later, which is their problem, certainly not mine. I've moved on, man. Like I said, I'm a Vandal, man. I'm a Vandal. And 3 out of 4 years, that's pretty good. And they said, is the grass greener?